Hello guys, the DB Grinder here, back at it again with another video, and this time I am here with Jib, the maker of the DDD spreadsheet. He's going to be showing off his DDD list here. So, do you want to do any shoutouts before we hop in?
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to my team and sponsor team Playmakers. Shout out to all my friends who helped promote and develop the spreadsheet. Special shout out to Nesh, among others. Shout out to my personal server, the barbershop. That's where me and my friends do a lot of testing, money matches, and stuff. And shout out to Coliseum, where a lot of the replays of DDD from the channel come from. And just shout out DB Grinder for having me.
Hey, thank you for being here. A lot of people have wanted to see DDD deck lists. Some people don't think you could play enough going second cards in it, but I think, this list kind of proves that wrong. And let's hop right into the list.
All right, yeah, definitely. So the first nine monsters kind of are like the heart and soul of the deck. 3 DD Kepler, 3 DD Copernicus, and 3 DD Griffin. Kepler and Copernicus are pretty old cards. Kepler basically on normal summon allows you to add a dark contract where Copernicus is a gazelle and if Foolish is a DD or dark contract card. DD Griffin is a new addition to the deck that came out in Battles of Chaos, and it basically solves most of the problems along with another card that the deck had. The deck is a lot more consistent now with DD Griffin, and it allows you to put bodies on field without committing a lot of cards. And its other effect is when it's revived from the graveyard, which DDD does a lot because it's a kind of like a reborn type deck. It adds a DD card from your deck to your hand, which is really strong in order to extend and grab interruption. So for the next part of the deck is the fusion part of the deck, the slimes. It's 3 Swirl Slime, 2 Necro Slime. Basically, what Swirl Slime allows you to do is you reveal it in your hand, and it doesn't discard for cost. It reveals in hand, and basically it allows you to fusion summon into a DD fusion monster from your extra deck using cards from your hand. And in the graveyard, you could banish it from your graveyard to special summon a DD monster from your hand. So it's kind of, in my opinion, it's the best extender in the deck because in hand, it reveals itself to basically put a body on board. And we go through like the DD fusion monsters, they're really strong. And then in the graveyard, it also allows you to banish yourself in order to put another body on field. So it helps you play through a lot of interruptions and it helps you push a lot going second in order to get into your Gilgamesh. 2 copies of Necroslime. Necroslime is basically in the graveyard. It banishes itself and other materials, not for cost. Again, it just activates in the graveyard and it's basically a miracle fusion. So it's a really good card in pair with Swirl Slime, and it's one of the main cards that you're going to be foolish barreling off of Copernicus. Next are like the pen like the quote unquote like worst pendulum monsters and the utility pendulum monsters. So we have 2 copies of DD Orthos. Orthos is a really good card and is really integral for some of your combos and is really good against trap matchups. Basically, in the scale, you target another DD card or Dark Contract control, and a spell and trap on the field, destroy it. So it's an MST basically in the scale. And its monster effect is interesting, but it comes up in some combos where basically if you take battle or effect damage, you special summon it from your hand, but it locks you into fiend monsters for the rest of the turn, which most of the time isn't an issue because your whole deck is basically fiend monsters, main and extra. But its main use and why it's really important is because in some lines it allows you to summon Baroness as your fifth summon in order to play around cards like Nibiru. The next 2 pendulum monsters are like the power scale monsters. You're mainly going to be scaling them. You rarely ever summon them, but they're mainly here there for their scale effects and combos that go with them. So the first one is DDD Oblivion King Ragnarok. Basically, if you special summon another DD monster while he's in the scale, you target a DD monster in your grave, special summon it. Your opponent takes half battle damage for the rest of the turn, and you burn for 1,000. So it's basically a monster reborn in the scale. Its monster effect is also a monster reborn for a DDD monster specifically, so it can't summon a double D. It's basically summoning your higher level monsters when it's special summoned to the field. And its other effect is it tributes another DD monster you control um in order to banish a monster your opponent controls. So basically, its monster effect helps you spot removal and it helps you get over some bigger monsters. Next is DD Savant Thomas. Basically, its scale effect is Oath Dragon Magician for people that play Pendulum Magicians, where basically during the main phase you target a face of DD in your extra deck, you return it to your hand. Its monster effect, you target a DD monster in your scale, destroy it, and then summon a DDD monster from your deck. Basically, a level 8 DDD monster from your deck in defense position is effective negate. So it basically its only target in the deck is Ragnarok. You're rarely ever going to use that effect, but sometimes there's some weird scenarios where you summon Thomas and you have like one DD card in your scale, you destroy it, summon Ragnarok from deck, and then go into Gilgamesh. And basically, the Thomas cleared your zones, so you're able to resolve Gilgamesh's effect. The last DD monster is DD Lamia. In the past, this card was like probably one of the best DD monsters. It's a tuner, level 1 tuner monster, and basically, if it's in your hand or graveyard, you send a DD or a Dark Contract from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard to special summon it and then banish it when it leaves the field. In the past one, the deck was more synchro summon orientated. This card was a 3 of and really integral for a lot of your combos, but basically, in this version of the deck, it's kind of reduced to just an extender monster for when you start with Copernicus as a 1 card combo with Gate. So it's basically just an extender in this version of the deck, and it helps you trigger cards like Ragnarok through Nibiru, like yeah, in order to reborn and try to extend your plays. The next cards in your deck are the Dark Contracts. So you have 3 Dark Contract with the Gates, 1 Dark Contract with the Swamp King, and then I'll throw Dark Contract with a patent license with them as the Dark Contracts of the deck. So basically, the Dark Contract with the Gate is a continuous spell where during the main phase you add a DD monster from your deck to your hand, but during your standby phase you take 1,000. So it's basically just a continuous spell Rhoda for the deck. It's really good. You search it off the Kepler, and it's just a continuous Rhoda every turn, so it's really powerful. Next is contract with the Swamp King. Swamp King is basically a continuous polymerization slash miracle fusion. So it lets you fusion summon DD fusion monsters using cards from your hand, field, and if you're using cards from your graveyard, you have to banish them. DD, Dark Contract with Patent License is basically a floodgate. It's a field spell where if it's on the field and your opponent summons a monster that has like the same type as a DDD monster you control, fusion, synchro, exceeds, pendulum, they basically burn for 1,000, and then they can't summon monsters of that type for the rest of the turn. And if it's sent to the graveyard by any means, you're able to recycle a DD monster from your graveyard or face up extra deck. So in some combos, you send it to the graveyard in order to extend or recycle certain cards. The next card in the deck is 3 copies of Small World. So one of the things about the DD deck is that there are different consistency cards that you can play in order to make your deck less bricky. I personally think that the deck isn't that bricky, but some people have said that the deck bricks a little more than they would like. So some people are playing Small World, other people are playing Allure, and some people are playing Pierre Reese map. But in this list that we're showcasing is playing Small World with Archfiend Eccentric as the bridge. Archfiend Eccentric basically bridges all the DD cards with all of your hand traps. And basically the point of Small World is that you take the neg 1, but you basically get any combo piece from your deck in order to go for a specific combo that you want to. So that's the point of Small World in this deck. Last 2 spells are 1 for 1. You know 1 for 1 does it summons Kepler from your deck, it summons Necroslime, it summons Lamia, and then 1 Upstart Goblin, 39 cards. Then for the hand trap lineup, we played 3 copies of Lancia, 3 copies of Ash, 3 copies of Nib. Ash is just the most generic. It's always going to be like the best generic hand trap in any given format for the most part. Three copies of Nibiru is just the highest impact hand trap when paired with another hand trap, and then three copies of Lancia. I think that Lancia is just really good right now because of the Brave cards, Phantom Knights, and Flunderies. And a lot of decks in general just like rely on banishing from the graveyard. So I feel that Lancia is a good card to main. And then the last card in the main deck is one copy of DDD Headhunt. Basically, what DDD Headhunt does is if you control a DDD monster, you target a monster your opponent controls, you snatch, steal it, and negate its effects. And if the monster that you took was from the extra deck, is considered a DDD. And basically, you give it back to your opponent at the end phase of the next turn. So not during the end phase. So it's not exactly like Woodlanker. And that's it for the main.
All right, let's hop into the extra deck.
All right, cool. So for the extra deck, we have three copies of Gilgamesh. It takes, for those who don't know, is the heart and soul of the deck basically, and it's kind of one of the biggest choke points of the deck. But if it resolves, you should be in a really good spot. It takes two DD monsters, and when it's special summoned, um, you can activate its effect. You can't special summon monsters for the rest of the turn after it resolves, except for DD monsters. But you place two DD monsters with different names from your deck into your pendulum zone, and then you take 1,000 damage. So basically, it's a one card full scale from your deck. It's like a really crazy effect in a vacuum if you think about it. And then its other effect is if it's destroyed by battle with an opponent's attacking monster or by an opponent's card effect while it's in your monster zone, you can special summon a DD monster from your extra deck or graveyard. So like if this card, if you special summon this card and it gets gamma per se, you're allowed to go into your extra deck and summon another DD monster. So you can summon like an interruption card like Siegfried, or you can summon like an extender card like Genghis or like Wave King, which we're gonna get to soon. Next, one Zeus. You play Xyz. Sometimes you don't use Gilgamesh's effect and you just climb into Zeus in order to clear boards going second. It's just like a really, like, if you're playing more than a couple Xyz monsters, I think you should play Zeus. One copy of Wave King Caesar. It takes two level 4 fiends, and basically during either player's turn, you detach an Xyz material, and at the end of the battle phase, you can special summon as many monsters from your graveyard that were destroyed this turn. So while that effect seems kind of like super niche, sometimes when you're going second, you can activate its effect and then destroy monsters you control with cards like Orthos, cards like Baroness that we're gonna go into, just like crashing your cards into your opponent's monsters in order to get their effects when they're sent to the graveyard, and then you just reborn them all at the end of the battle phase. And its other effect is when it's sent to the graveyard by any means, you add a dark contract from your deck to your hand. So it kind of combos well with the first effect where you can detach one and crash into your opponent's monster and then search your dark contract. Then when you end the battle phase, you're able to resummon it and then go for like something like Zeus, which is like something that you can do like fairly often going second. Next is one copy of DDD High Wave King Caesar. Basically, this is one of the cards that you're trying to end on in a lot of matchups, and is a solemn warning. It's a double solemn warning that increases your monster's attack by 1,800 every time you use it, and then when it's sent to the graveyard, similar to the regular Wave King, you search your dark contract from your deck to your hand. One copy of Marksman Can Tell. Basically, you can rank it on top of the small Caesar, and if you took effect damage that turn, you detach one Xyz material to burn your opponent for 1,000. That effect is not once per turn. It's not a hard once per turn. So if you're able to like loop it and then resummon it, you can do it again. And then also, if it's sent to the graveyard, you're allowed to send a DD or Dark Contract from your deck to the graveyard. So it's also another card that you can use in certain certain combos in order to send cards like Necroslime, send cards like the Fill Spell in order to recycle. So it's another combo piece, and the burden damage can also help you in time. Two copies of Machina. Basically, this is the second card that solved pretty much, I would say, most of DDD's problems that I had in the past, where this card basically can be summoned on top of any DDD monster, and that's really important, and that changes a lot for the DDD deck because in the past the DDD deck had a problem extending because it took too many cards in order to put more DDDs on the board in order to resolve a lot of your reborn effects in order to keep going. but just being able to summon this on top of a Gilgamesh and trigger cards like Genghis and cards like Ragnarok is just really important. Its actual effect is when your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can detach two Xyz materials or destroy one dark contract you control in order to attach that opponent's card um to it as material. So a question that people have had about this card is what happens if it gets like Ghost Ogred. The monster stays on the field. It's similar to a Silent Honor arc, but it's a cool piece of interruption. But the main importance of the card is that it's easily summonable and it triggers a lot of your reborn effects. So that's it for the Xyz monsters. For the Synchro monsters, you play one copy of DDD Curse King Siegfried. This card came out a while ago with the structure deck, and basically it's a hot red for spells and traps. And when it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you gain 1,000 life points for each dark contract you control. Then you play one copy of Baroness. Basically, you're able to summon it in certain combos as your fifth summon, and it protects you from Nib. Then for the fusions, you play one copy of DDD High Flame Genghis. Basically, it takes a level 5 or higher DD plus a DD monster. And if you normal summon or special summon a DD monster, it reborns a DD monster. And then it has has another effect that is kind of integral for some of your going second, where it's able to negate a spell or trap, but only on your turn. Then you play two copies of regular Flame King Genghis. It's similar to a high Flame King Genghis, but it only triggers on special summon. And then it has another effect that's super niche. It doesn't really come up, but it can come up sometimes. Where if it's destroyed by battle or yeah, if it's destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you could target a dark contract in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. And then the one flex spot in the extra deck is for this list, we're playing one copy of Oracle King Diarch. It's really good for time and it's just a good generic fusion monster to go into, and it helps you like fix some combos when you scuff them by summoning it and then sending Lami in order to make Siegfried. But this spot can be a lot of different cards. It can be Kali Yuga, and it could be the Dark Charmer Gloomy. It's kind of up to player preference what this slot could be, but for this list we're playing Dark as that slot. Then for the side deck is pretty generic. Three Gamos, three Bell. Just more hand traps for going second. Bell's really good against prank kids and is pretty alright against the brave cards. Gamma's just like a really good hand trap in general. I feel during most formats. Three copies of Cosmic for back row decks and Phantom Knights. Three copies of Talents. You basically could swap Talents with any one of the hand traps in the main that you don't feel is good in that matchup. And it's just a card that like if you get hand trapped, you can just look at your opponent's hand or draw two cards. It's a lot of good cards that you can draw in this deck, and it's a lot of extenders that you can open so that you more comfortably can look at your opponent's hand. One copy of Dark Contract with Errors. Dark Contract with Errors is basically, um, what do you call it? It's basically a royal decree that you can search with Wave King. So there's some lines where if you play against a deck like Eldritch, instead of searching the field spell per se in your combo or the fusion spell, because you don't really want to end on like a monster summon negate against like an Eldritch deck, you can search Dark Contract or Errors instead. And then one copy of Red Reboot again. You don't want to just lose to like an Eldritch deck with triple skill drain and a bunch of floodgates. It's just like a really good card against those type of decks. And that's the deck.
All right. Few questions about the main deck.
Yeah.
Have you tried out like the well, I know you tried these cards out, but did you like the DDD Go card? Like the DDD Griffin, like the other DD pendulum names that people have been trying out?
Yeah, so there are like three DD card names that like come to mind when you talk about like other options that people are playing. Is DD Cerberus and Rage King. Those cards are really cool in my opinion. Like they allow Kepler to be a one card combo. While I don't think that that's one card combos that viable, and it puts up a lot of interruptions. It is like a cool art alternative that you can put into your deck in order to have that option, because there are some hands where you draw like four non-engine cards or three non-engine cards and two Kepler and a DD card that doesn't exactly match with Kepler, and you just want to have a one card combo that you can go try to attempt to go for, even though it like loses to most hand traps, instead of just having like a complete brick hand, you know.
Hmm.
And then the third one is DD Vice Typhoon. DD Vice Typhoon is cool. Like, it mainly just there to summon High Flame King Genghis. It is definitely an option. Like, I have a list that I was working on that's playing one Necro Slime, one Vice Typhoon, and that's definitely something that you can do, because there are some combos where instead of sending Necro Slime, you can send Vice Typhoon and it does the same thing, and it just saves you a Necro Slime index. So that's also an option. Like, this deck is actually like very flexible in what it could play and what you can take out. To be honest.
And then, have you been liking the small world over like the allure and map that other people have been playing?
So the issue with Allure is that Allure is best in my friend Lundradi said this. He basically, and I agreed with him. He basically said that Allure is best in decks where the card quality of all your dark monsters are the same. So like in like a Luna Light Danger deck, like you have the Luna Light cards and you have the Danger cards. You can play a Lore because all your cards kind of do the same thing. All the Dangers do the same thing. And you're playing like two or three Luna Lights that all kind of do a very similar thing. But in this deck, the quality of your Dark Monsters vary a lot. Like if you open like Kepler plus Kepler Copernicus plus Allure, you kind of want to use Allure in order to cycle more cards. But say you don't draw another Dark Monster, now you have to get rid of Kepler or Copernicus, and it just makes your combo a lot more frail and weak. So like Allure, I think is like out of the question. Like I would never play Allure in this deck. But then the other one is what's the other one? Pierre's Map. I think that card is like really good, but my issue with that card and why I wouldn't just say, okay, you have to play Pierre's Map, is because if you resolve your full combo after resolving Pierre's Map, you usually end on 3,000 or 2,000 life points with two contracts on the board. So, like, you're in, like, lethal range against a lot of decks and against yourself, just burning to death in the next standby phase. So, it's a high risk, high reward type card. So, yeah, that's how I feel about those consistency cards.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say before we go ahead and hop off?
Uh, yeah, uh, definitely. I just wanted to like say what do I want to say? I want to say big shout out again to DB Grinder for having me. I understand that some people like really don't like spreadsheets, and that's fine. There are a lot of great free content for DDDs out there. Definitely, like people like Califect put out a great deck profile. There's people like Jack YGO that like put out a lot of great content. And yeah, I just want the deck to do well and more people to enjoy having a pendulum deck viable in the format. Like, when was the last time that we had a viable pendulum deck in the format?
Yo, Triv is crying right now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, shout out my boy Steven, man. I was talking to him earlier today. He's amazing. He's a great dude. Shout out him for no reason, just because. Pen God.
Are you still selling the spreadsheet?
Yeah. It's still we're still selling it.
I will leave Jib's Discord down below at the very top of the description. You can go ahead and message him on Discord. It's $25 for the spreadsheet if you want to go ahead and buy it. There's a lot of combos in it. There's also other example deck lists talking about cards. I've seen the spreadsheet. I think it's pretty good. That's my opinion on it. It's got the DB grinder stamp of approval. And
Adios.
and yeah, with that being said, any final words?
Um, DDD's nuts.
Whoa, come on. Yo, I'm out. I'm out.